On this Thursday night, the biggest prisoner swap since the Cold War. 24 people, including a dual Canadian-American, finally free.
Their brutal ordeal is over.
Why Russia agreed to this now, plus the prisoner who was supposed to be part of it. Hamas takes another hit with the assassination of its military chief.
Mohammed Deif had survived 7 assassination attempts, at least.
And what was hidden in a guest house that killed Hamas's political leader. Canada's mortgage rule modification, the short-term relief for certain homeowners that could lead to long-term pain. And making another splash at the Olympics, Canadian Summer Macintosh's record-breaking win.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with the biggest prisoner swap since the end of the Cold War. The American president revealed today that for months the U.S. has quietly been working on making a complicated exchange with Russia happen. And today it took place in the Turkish capital Ankara. One of the planes carrying this smiling group who are now free and have waited for years for this moment. 24 people are on the move, 16 prisoners held in Russia and Belarus being exchanged for 8 Russians imprisoned in the U.S., Germany, Slovenia, Norway and Poland. Among those freed are 4 U.S. residents, including Canadian-born Paul Whelan.
Russian authorities arrested them, convicted them in show trials, and sentenced them to long prison terms with absolutely no legitimate reason whatsoever. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here.
Biden calls the exchange a complex feat of diplomacy that involved multiple countries. Jackson Proskow has our top story on who was released and how it all unfolded.
Their release from captivity was documented by Russian state TV. Dissidents and journalists, including Canadian-born Paul Whelan and Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, led to a waiting plane for a high-stakes exchange. A few hours later, they were free, beginning their long trip home.
Today was a very good day.
Gershkovich, a reporter arrested on trumped-up charges of espionage, was recently sentenced to 16 years in prison. Whelan, a former U.S. Marine, was arrested in 2018 while traveling to a wedding in Russia. In 2020, he was sentenced to 16 years in a penal colony.
Those who oppose Vladimir Putin's regime.
Vladimir Kara-Murza, a Russian political activist imprisoned for speaking out against the war in Ukraine, is now free too. In exchange, Russia secured the release of hackers, fraudsters, and most notably Vadim Krazikov, a high-ranking FSB officer. Krazikov was sentenced to life in a German prison for the assassination of a Russian dissident in Berlin.
The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined a difficult, complex negotiation.
It took months of negotiations to get here. U.S. President Joe Biden was making calls up to the hour before his Oval Office announcement that he wouldn't seek re-election, while Russian President Vladimir Putin hinted at a deal earlier this year when asked about freeing Gershkovich.
We want the U.S. Special Services to think about how they can contribute to achieving the goals our special services are pursuing. We are ready to talk.
This prisoner swap is unlikely to cool tensions with the West. Russia has a long track record of capturing people to use as bargaining chips for the release of its own operatives.
It's not about the propaganda at home. Rather, it's about maintaining the flexibility to do all kinds of nefarious things abroad.
One prominent prisoner was left out of the final exchange. The White House confirms that jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was supposed to have been part of the deal. He died in prison in February before he could ever see freedom. Dawna?
So sad for his family. Jackson, thanks. With me now is Bill Browder, an author and vocal critic of the Kremlin and head of the global Magnitsky Justice Campaign. Mr. Browder, thanks for speaking with us. What are your thoughts on the significance of this prisoner swap?
Well, I think it's dramatic. Something like this hasn't happened since the Cold War. Remember the whole Bridge of Spies story? This is that type of thing. It involved so many different countries that it was really, I would say, a feat of diplomatic genius that it actually happened. And I think that there is also a very interesting political element to this whole story, which is that Putin really wants Trump to be the next president. And when Biden was running against Trump, Putin certainly wouldn't have wanted to give him this kind of diplomatic victory. But since Biden has dropped out of the race, this allowed Putin to actually go forward with it. And I think that the timing is very much a consequence of Biden dropping out of the race.
Well, the Russian president certainly does make calculated moves. Do you think that's why he agreed to this? That's why we're looking at this timing now? And why would he have done this? Because surely he loses some leverage against the West.
Well, I mean, if you look at this deal overall, it's a pretty awful deal in the sense that you have a bunch of innocent people who did nothing. Evan Gershkovich, a journalist who just reported on what Russia. You had Paul Whelan, who was framed. You had my friend Vladimir Karamurza, who was sentenced to 25 years for opposing the war. So you have this group of people who did nothing, who were imprisoned. And then you have a group of like cold-blooded killers and fraudsters and money launderers and spies who committed grave crimes, who were found guilty by courts of law in rule of law countries, who were then released. And so it's a big win for Putin to get all these criminals out in exchange for people who did nothing wrong. So in a certain way, the West is the loser, but being a close friend of one of the hostages that was released, Vladimir Karamurza, who I believe would have died in prison like Alexei Navalny did if he had stayed, I think it was a worthwhile trade, because I'd rather not see my friend and various other people dying in Russian prisons, as awful as the trade was.
We know that Russia, of course, is capable of reaching beyond its borders to silence its critics. Are you more or less worried about your own safety today?
I would argue that my own safety is more compromised today than it was yesterday because of Vadim Krasikov, the assassin who was released from Germany. And whether he's going to go out and do any assassinations or not, I don't know. But what I can say is that the message that Putin has sent to his whole assassination squad is, if you do an assassination and you get caught, we'll get you out of prison. And so that increases the chance that someone like me or other enemies of the regime get killed. But again, that's the risk that I'm ready to take to save the lives of those people who are now not going to die in Russian prisons.
All right. Bill Browder, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Israel vowed to eliminate the leaders of Hamas, and now its military has confirmed it has killed the head of the Hamas military wing in Gaza last month. Mohammed Deif was considered one of the masterminds of the October 7th attacks on Israel. Hamas has yet to confirm his death. Israel announced it the same day as the funeral of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, who was assassinated in a bold attack in Tehran. Reports are emerging it wasn't a missile that killed him, but a bomb that had been smuggled into the heavily guarded guest house he was staying in. Neetu Garcha on how that assassination happened.
Thousands gathered in Tehran Thursday after the death of Ismail Haniyeh, the top leader of Hamas. As new details emerge about how the attack killing Haniyeh and his bodyguard unfolded, reports suggest an explosive device was covertly smuggled into this guest house and remained hidden for months before being detonated remotely.
This is a massive, massive intelligence failure, a massive security failure on the part of the Iranian regime.
Israel has not claimed responsibility. Benjamin Netanyahu is accused of directly ordering the assassination through Israel's national intelligence agency, the Mossad.
If the Mossad did this, they would have had help inside Iran, which also tells us that there are many, many dissidents in Iran.
Israeli intelligence reportedly briefed Western governments on the operation, but the U.S. said it had no prior knowledge of the plot.
The United States was not aware of or involved in the apparent death of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Indeed, we have no independent confirmation as to Hamas's claims regarding his death.
Palestinians gathered in the West Bank protesting Haniyeh's killing. It comes amid ongoing hostilities. The Israeli military confirmed Thursday it killed Mohammed Deif, the head of Hamas's military wing, in a strike in Gaza last month. Hamas previously said Deif survived the strike. Deif, one of the masterminds of the October 7 attacks on Israel, had long been one of Israel's most wanted figures. After meeting with military officials Thursday, Netanyahu declared that Deif's death enforces a simple principle: whoever hurts us, we hurt them, with international mediators scrambling to prevent further escalation.
The European Union has also a principled position of rejecting extrajudicial killings.
And with Iran vowing retribution, the coming days could prove crucial for the future of the Middle East. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
New mortgage rules kick in today that the government says will help first-time buyers in Canada. Those who qualify will now have up to 30 years to pay off a mortgage, up from the standard term of 25 years. But as MacKenzie explains, it's unlikely to affect affordability and means more money will be paid in interest.
The finance minister once again looking for a way to, as she puts it, make housing more affordable.
30-year mortgages will be available for applications to mortgage insurers on or after August 1st.
But not every Canadian can get one. To qualify for a 30-year amortization, you need to be a first-time home buyer, purchase a new-build home, and put less than 20% down on your mortgage.
This is an incredibly small number of people who can actually access it.
But for those who can get a 30-year, their monthly payment will be cheaper. For the average condo here in Ottawa, you'd save $184 a month compared to a 25-year mortgage. And for a house, it would be $320. But 5 more years of amortization means 5 more years of interest. And for that average Ottawa condo, that means you pay over $63,000 in interest. And on that average house, a staggering $110,000 more.
It doesn't really help affordability at the end of the day. It might help the initial wave of buyers coming into the market.
Higher interest rates have held home prices in check throughout most of the country, but unaffordability is still close to near record highs.
The broad problem of affordability, it's not going to be solved by having longer and longer mortgages or longer and longer amortization. It's going to be solved by building homes that people can actually afford.
Which is not happening. The most recent numbers from the Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation show new housing construction down 13% year over year.
Let's get the grand tour.
Yeah. Despite it being a core political issue for every level of government.
New construction has not kept up with the rate of population growth, and we've seen booming population, especially over the last couple of years.
Another group likely to benefit from this policy, developers, particularly in Vancouver, where new home sales have dipped 20% in 2023, and in Toronto, Dawna, where condo sales have hit a 27-year low.
MacKenzie, thanks. In the BC interior, authorities are warning of a potentially catastrophic deluge of water after a massive landslide blocked the Chilcotin River. A huge pool of water has been building up behind that slide since it came down Tuesday night. Authorities believe it will give way sometime within the next 24 to 48 hours. 60 low-lying properties downstream from the Chilcotin have been evacuated. The river flows into the Fraser, and everyone downstream all the way to Hope, BC, are warned to stay off the river and away from the banks. Countering disinformation coming up, how false reports sparked violent riots in the UK. Diplomatic efforts are underway to pressure Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro to release the official tallies from Sunday's disputed election that sparked deadly protests. Government officials from Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico have been in constant contact with Maduro's administration, demanding he show the tally sheets that each electronic voting machine printed after the polls closed and allow impartial verification. The opposition says the results will show Maduro lost. On Wednesday, he asked Venezuela's highest court to conduct an audit of the results, but critics say that court is too closely tied to the government. In the UK, more than 100 people have now been arrested in 2 days of violent demonstrations after the stabbing rampage that left 3 girls dead. Angry far-right protesters took to the streets after false information spread online that the suspect was an asylum seeker.
A gang of thugs got on trains and buses, went to a community that is not their own, a community grieving the most horrific tragedy, and then proceeded to throw bricks at police officers, it's not protest, it's not legitimate, it's crime.
Today, in an effort to set the record straight, a UK court revealed the identity of the 17-year-old suspect. Axel Rudo Akobana was born in the UK. He faces 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder linked to the attack at that Taylor Swift-themed dance class on Monday. 5 children are still in the hospital in stable condition. Canada's connection to slavery ahead, the new exhibit highlighting a dark chapter in history. Today is Emancipation Day in many countries that used to be British colonies, including Canada. August 1st marks when the UK passed the Slavery Abolition Act in 1834 to end enslavement in the British Empire. As Heidi Petrachuk reports, that history and its lessons are being explained in an exhibit at Canada's National Immigration Museum.
A day before its official opening, the final touches were being put on a new exhibit at the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21.
Many people do not know about this history of slavery in Canada, and it's our story.
A story from a time when most black people in Canada were considered property, long before slavery was abolished in what was British North America on August 1st, 1834.
We're very proud of Canada being a destination for people seeking freedom, the story of the Underground Railroad or the Black Loyalists. But the fact that we had 2 centuries of slavery before that, the fact that we had slave ships, we had slave auctions, the tentacles of the slave trade reached up and included Canada in fundamental ways.
Canada sent natural resources like wood and fish to slave plantations in the West Indies and received exports in return, including black captives.
One that really made me very sad was the story of Jude. Jude, a 15-year-old girl from Yarmouth County, Nova Scotia. She was murdered by her slave holders. Nothing came of it because she was property according to law, and they killed the girl and walked away.
The exhibit's artifacts are reminders of that brutality. An early 19th century pair of leg shackles designed to be welded shut. A bullwhip from a slave ship found in Nova Scotia. All part of a past the curators say serves an important lesson for the present.
The shadow of racism that black people face all the time, many of those are attitudes and beliefs that came directly from slavery.
So it's a collective story, and we need to hear it instead of hiding it under the rug.
They hope to take the exhibit to museums across the country and bring this dark chapter of Canadian history into the light. Heidi Petrachuk, Global News, Halifax.
The International Olympic Committee is defending its decision to allow 2 boxers to compete in the women's competition despite both of them failing gender eligibility tests. Algerian Iman Khalif beat Italy's Angela Carini today, but only after Carini abandoned the match after just 46 seconds. She said she had never been hit so hard. She said she wasn't making a political statement by abandoning the match. Khalif and another boxer from Taiwan were disqualified from last year's World Championships after failing an unspecified gender eligibility test. The IOC has called that test arbitrary. Golden summer next. Canada's swimming sensation grabs another gold in Paris. Italian gymnast Giorgia Via is a rising star at the Paris Olympics. She helped Italy win a medal in artistic gymnastics, but it's these cheesy photos that are really getting attention. She's sponsored by Parmigiano Reggiano, and she's making the most of posing on the huge wheels of cheese and seems to be enjoying being the face of Big Parma. The most decorated gymnast in history has done it again. American Simone Biles has won her 6th Olympic gold. The 27-year-old triumphed at the women's all-round final today in Paris, winning her 2nd gold medal for the event. She is the 3rd female Olympian ever to do that. And then there's Canadian swimmer Summer McIntosh, just 17 years old, and she is on fire at these games. She won a 2nd gold medal today in the women's 200-meter butterfly and broke an Olympic record doing it. And as Crystal Gamansing reports, her mom is right there with her.
Summer McIntosh is racking up wins and smashing records in the pool. 40 years after her mom competed in this event at the LA Olympics, her daughter clinched gold. It is the first time a Canadian ever medaled in the 200-meter butterfly, and McIntosh did it in record time. The 17-year-old from Ontario attracts a huge fan base. People young and old are excited to see her, not only because of her abilities in the pool, but also her demeanor. What do you like about her when you watch her in the pool?
That she's having fun. Go Canada!
Isla's family came from Cold Lake, Alberta to be a part of the Olympic experience.
Oh, it's amazing. It just puts a lot of inspiration inside of her and just gives her a lot of, eagerness and dedication to keep trying and push harder in whatever she does.
What do you think of her skill level?
She's unbelievable. I know her as a person, and she's just as amazing outside the pool as she is in the pool. So it's great to see her here getting to do what she was born to do.
McIntosh made her Olympic debut in Tokyo as the youngest athlete on Team Canada. At these games, she's reached the podium in every individual event that she's raced, earning 2 golds and a silver.
She mostly relies on hard work. She's an extremely hard worker. We're most proud about that and the person she is and how she represents her country and loves her teammates.
As far as Olympic reaction moments go, that image of her mom in the stands yelling "yeah" over and over again during the 200-meter butterfly race is a picture-perfect snapshot. A moment not just about sports, but parental pride, as everyone enjoys what's coming to be known as the Summer of Summer. Dawna?
Summer of Summer. Crystal, thanks. One more Canadian is making Olympic history in tennis. Today, Felix Auger-Aliassime became the first Canadian to reach the semifinals of singles tennis, and tomorrow he'll have a shot at a bronze in mixed doubles with Gabriela Dabrowski. Canada has just 1 Olympic medal in tennis. Auger-Aliassime could win 2. That is Global National for this Thursday. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.